together after we're done before I start working. So
Okay.
I hate doing all this together. But anyway, all right, if we're ready, then let's begin. In 3, 2, 1.
Hello? Are you ready? Yes. Then we'll begin.
Anything can happen when we are totally live. And we are totally live this morning, as you can tell. So hold on to your hats, and here we go. Welcome to Monday Morning Catholic, episode number 85.
6:30 Monday morning, I'm here hiding in my bed. A song plays on my alarm clock as I cover up my head. And somewhere in the distance, I remember yesterday singing hallelujah, full of wonder.
And usually we're better at remembering yesterday because we usually record yesterday. But no, this morning we actually are recording live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Anything can happen at this point. Welcome to Monday Morning Catholic. I am your host and moderator, Joanne Mercier, working on not many hours of sleep for other reasons I won't go into. But we're here, 8:39 on Monday morning, the 24th of August, believe it or not. And it's because these two lovely people, I want them with me all the time. So they just need to be available. And when they're available, that's when we do this. Of course, Nancy's got the day job. So sorry, Nance. We understand. But Steve Romano over at St. Augustine's in Providence is going to be running out later on to bury the dead. Good morning, Stephen. How you doing today?
Good morning. I'm good. Yeah, I have a funeral at 11 o'clock.
Which is the reason why 8:30 became the go-to time this morning. But that's okay. Linda Reed from St. Thomas's in Providence, Rhode Island, and I are just hanging in there. Good morning, Linda. How you doing?
Good morning, Joanne. Good morning, Stephen. 8:30 is not my finest hour.
It's not mine either. Trust me. And I have a full face on just for
Yes, I have somewhat of a face on.
I just put some concealer on a pimple I have. That's it.
Oh, thank you so much. There we go already.
Go, Stephen.
Here we go.
My wife's gonna come home and say, "Why is my makeup bag all out of sorts?"
You know, that's a little bit too much this morning.
That's funny.
We really don't want to do that.
That's funny.
So
We'll do our best.
yes, and you can tell my use of the soundboard will be very liberal this morning. Try to cover up a few.
Your soundboard will probably make more sense than I will.
Maybe. But it was a very interesting weekend for homilies and scripture. So I think we're going to have a little bit of fun with that anyway. Don't you?
Definitely.
Because some people heard long versions that they didn't want to hear, and other people heard short versions when they probably could have wanted to hear the long version, and everything was just too hard to understand.
Yes.
There you go.
It was all hard sayings.
Well, I know at my new church there was no doubt in my mind that they were going to skip right over, and they certainly did. So it was the short version.
Yeah, well, we didn't.
All 3 times, or just the 2?
No. We had a sister read at 10:30, and she read the short version.
That's what I figured.
Which wasn't that short. It just cut out the first part.
I know. And everybody, if you're wondering what that part was, then you really weren't listening yesterday, were you?
Or you didn't hear the long version.
True.
Yeah.
True. You didn't go back and find out what they actually did cut out. Hint, it's like Holy Family Sunday. Which I still don't understand why that one's read on Holy Family Sunday.
Yeah, really.
Anyway, we're going to try to keep it all civil here as we look back at the weekend's liturgies and try to make some sense out, especially this weekend. Try to make some sense of everything we see and hear, but we're also going to talk about a few other things. I don't have any technology to talk about yet, so we're going to have to wait until Apple starts releasing things before I get to talk about that. But we do have a few things, especially our Voice of the People this week, which, again, is a music topic. I'm so sorry for those of you who are not musicians or don't understand the years of war that we've been through. You know,
there's people out there that are really, that I guess they are. They don't. Music isn't their thing. As hard as it is to believe.
I know, but this has been going on for a long time.
Music, even if you're not a musician, I think you definitely have an opinion or a feeling one way or the other about the music that's used at liturgy.
That's
even
true.
If you're not a musician.
That's true. I mean, music...
Because I've heard online and off many people expound at length who are not musicians about the music used at Mass.
That's true.
God knows that I love music.
You know, it is true. Music is subjective, so everybody's got their own opinion about it.
You got it.
And we hear it, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Solicited and unsolicited.
Yeah.
When we ask.
It's like, oh, you're a church musician?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello. So we've got and we actually have feedback.
Woo!
We actually have feedback today, not the crickets. My finger's going to be like, hopefully hitting the right ones today too. So.
I've also gotten rid of Darth Vader.
Yes, that's another
much nicer, much more flexible support.
She actually did not need assistance this weekend, so that was okay with me.
I was able to play.
I was able to read.
Yeah.
Some people would have probably preferred I played.
It would have been, it would have been less interesting if you had played.
That's very true. So we're going to jump into everything this morning. Hopefully some of you are on our Facebook, coming through here from our Facebook page. I'm watching the counter right now. We do have one person watching.
Oh, okay. Hey.
Hello.
It's so nice of you to get up at this hour.
You know, for me, it's okay if they watch after we're done.
Yes.
It's if I know people are watching while we're doing it, it gets.
Maybe it's the Pope.
Yeah.
You're right. Sure. I don't.
Yes.
Nah.
We heard we were recording live this morning.
Yeah.
It'd be a miracle if it were him. Let me tell you. Yikes. Or we'd have to rename this show. Welcome to my night. You know, so I don't even want to go down that road. So
No.
I think we are going to look at feedback right away because that's important. We haven't had any in a while, so we're kind of really happy.
How does it look from where you are? How does it look from your side?
And I've got my tea this morning to keep me awake. My tea is at the ready here. So, all right. We have feedback from our good friend John in Yakima. John's had a busy summer, I'll tell you, and I wish I could read the whole thing to you, but I'll give you a synopsis. He attended the Catholic New Media Conference, which I had planned on going to, so I feel badly. I did not get a chance to go there. But he apparently had a good time, and he actually sat at lunch with Allison Gingras.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I need to ask Allison a few things. So
ask him if she got a picture.
Yeah, that's the next thing.
Yeah.
Please, my friends, the Willitzes, of all of their patrons, they've asked all of us to send a picture so they could have it up on a wall to give them sort of like motivation. It took me a while before I actually sent my picture. Because I'm not one known for wanting to be seen.
I love having my picture taken.
I hate having my picture taken. I am probably the least photogenic person in the world.
I'm not great either.
Because if I really look like that, I'm going to shoot myself.
Will you be nice? I could say the same thing. So yeah, I will have to ask Allison a few things since they had lunch. But you know, he said he did have an enjoyable time, even though the whole CEO of Catholic New Media, Father Roderick, couldn't make it. It was one of those years where, and this is what's happening with priests, and we talked about it around the time the CMMC was, he couldn't get away because he couldn't find anybody to celebrate Mass for him. So he had to stay. And that happens more and more and more and more nowadays.
Yeah. And
it's going to keep happening. And it's going to bring our guys and they're going to end up staying in the parishes rather than going out and being with the people. So I feel, you know, some people would say, well, it's the same thing. Not really. Not really. But that's a discussion for another time. But then he also said when his associate at the parish was hospitalized, his pastor had the following weekend schedule. Now I know my pastor in Cranberry Land can definitely resonate with this. He had on Saturday and his normal 8 o'clock mass. He had a 10 o'clock funeral. He had a noon funeral. Okay, and they have a cemetery priest that does just cemeteries. Now that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, for some of the older guys, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, right. Well, they do have one at Veterans, you know.
They do.
Down at Veterans Memorial.
Yeah, but we have these Catholic cemeteries up here. Why don't we have a retired priest be there at the graveside?
Yeah.
You know? Because, Stephen, your pastor or your associate's doing a funeral today, and they've got to go to the graveside along with the casket, correct?
And as a matter of fact, the pastor was away this weekend, and our associate did all the masses.
Yeah, there you go. When you have an associate, it's a little easier, but then when the associate's not there or the pastor's not there, the other one has to bear the burden. So he says then he had between 2 and 3 to do hospital visits. He had 4 o'clock confessions, 5:30 mass on Saturday. Then he had two masses on Sunday. And he got the cemetery priest to the other 2 masses, which are 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. 7 p.m. is a tough time for mass. I'll tell you that much.
Did it for years.
And then they have a 1 o'clock mass, and they got the bishop emeritus to do that one. So
they have 9 masses on a weekend.
They're a cathedral.
Oh.
That's why. So the pastor celebrated 6 of the 9 masses on that weekend. And apparently, you're only supposed to trinate.
Yeah.
Well, trinate, which is 3 masses on a Sunday. According to canon law, you're only supposed to do that. Of course, now there's the caveat that says, you know, if
for pastoral reasons.
Pastoral reasons, but that really, I think, under Roman law, should be the exception and not the rule.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so I don't know. We're going to burn out more men at this point, which is really sad. Okay. Yep. And this guy and his
my pastor's alone all the time. He doesn't have an associate to spell.
Father Scott ended up. We have 5 masses on the weekend, and he did them all.
There you go. He doesn't have an associate to spell him, so this is his. But we only have 3 masses on a weekend.
Right.
Without funerals and weddings.
You know, and Nancy has told us before that they went from 5 masses where she is to 4. You know, they had to do that, and because there's only one guy, and he does have some help, but not.
Yeah. I
mean, the older priest that's there is not assigned to that parish.
Yeah.
So he can say yay or nay.
Right.
On what he wants. So John continues that he had foot surgery, and we hope, John, that you are really on the mend now.
Yes.
Talking about the knee scooter. Now, I never knew anything about a knee scooter. Apparently, Linda has lots. Yes. Linda has experience with knee scooters.
I had Achilles tendon surgery on both my feet.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and I used the knee scooter, and it was lots of fun. Up and down, I would ride it up the ramp and down the center aisle of the church and get me to a chair and do Mass because I couldn't put any weight on the foot. So, yeah.
That's a riot.
Well, it beat crutches, let me tell you. Crutches do a number on your arms.
Yeah, I think I would rather have that than had to have crutches. Yeah. So, but now that things are getting better for him, and thank God they are, John.
We're happy.
Now, he'll be back to teaching his adult education classes in September, and that's, kids are going back to school here this week.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. So, I mean, I think after last winter, people have decided they want to get a jump on.
Yeah.
But he did give us a few notes for last week's homily, so definitely we want to talk about this. So, okay, let's see. The gospel, this is last week. Of course, we've been talking about bread for 5 weeks. So, the gospel is about nourishment, nutrition, eating. When we eat food, it becomes part of us. When we eat food, we assimilate it. Oh, God, that gives me a Star Trek. Yeah. Ever I saw one go into the, 7 of 9. That's all I can think of. When we eat the Eucharist, it is the other way around. We are assimilated into Christ. Okay, so when we eat food, we assimilate it. When we partake of the Eucharist, because I'll use that terminology, it's the other way around. We are assimilated into Christ. I like that. When we partake in communion or kneel in adoration, we are not before a static object, but before a living God. Not just a reminder, but the one who sacrificed his life for us. The more we receive him in communion, the hungrier we get for him. And yeah, that's
good. Yeah.
Yep, that's good. John also does like the fact that we're doing this opinion topic every week. Because he said this surprise variety means we'll not get tired of the same old topics. Well, thank you. That's one of the reasons why we're doing it.
Yeah.
The other reason is to get more people talking to us. And, John, we appreciate the fact that you do. So thank you so much for your feedback. Now, if we could get some of the others to send us their feedback, we would really appreciate it. We know we have an hour to do these things, so we try to get through them as quickly as we can. But we really could I'd rather be sitting here every week wondering which one's the best to pick.
Yeah.
Which couple are the best to pick than sitting here going, we have nothing again. Don't make me beg. So, if you could, and if you would like to send us feedback, and we know you're out there, because here's the thing. When you see us in person, you tell us your feedback. Write it down.
Write it down.
Friends who are closer to us, write it down for the rest of the world. No, come on, if you don't want us to use your names, tell us and we won't. But it's mondaymorningcatholic@gmail.com. And then you could also use the comment box. You can be anonymous at the comment box as well. mondaymorningcatholic.net. We will hide your identities if you're that concerned. But on facebook.com/mondaymorningcatholic, we can't do that. You're out there. So, and some of you are brave enough to do this, as we'll talk about later. So thank you for doing that. You can also tweet at us, at me anyway, at Ritual Diva or at MMCatholic. And of course, if you're really brave, you can call us at the voice feedback line, 774-955-0659. We'll say this again at the end of the podcast. All right, let's roll into what everybody is waiting for us to roll into. Well, no, that's not it yet. But it's the homily of the week, so.
Do you hear what I hear?
It's what we come here for. Do you hear what I hear? For the 21st Sunday in Ordinary Time. Thank you, Jesus. It's the end of bread. It's the end of bread for another 3 years.
That's just the aftermath of bread.
No, that's. But, and I never realized it when I was in your shoes, you guys. I never realized how it was. Now sitting in the pew, it's like even worse.
Yeah.
how many more and I can see by the 5th week the presiders are like, and homilists are like,
we're doing bread again.
What else? I mean, you can write tomes on stuff, but
Sure you can.
But when it comes to getting it down to like 9 or 10 minutes, it's like, oh gosh, here we go again.
Yeah.
So let's see what we've got. This week we have some interesting. We have the book of Joshua. We have the book of Joshua.
Unless your lector screws it up.
I was waiting for you to say that. I did not, by the way, but somebody else did. So we won't.
But most people had the book of Joshua.
True, and you know what? I was saying this to my husband. I feel really badly when a homilist then has to, if they're using it in their homily, almost look like they're correcting.
Yeah.
Because they say, "Oh, you heard in the book of Joshua."
Yeah, he corrected himself in the actual reading of it, but in the book, it was not the book of Joshua. Yeah. Well, then when he went to do the reading, it was Joshua.
Well, what was it?
Josiah.
Oh.
Close.
He said, a reading from the book of Josiah, and I said, there is no book of Josiah.
Close.
But then he corrected himself, and we heard about Joshua, so that was all right.
Good. Well, there were there were 2 other difficult words in that one between Shechem and the Amorites.
Amorites, yes.
Amorites always gets a little bit of a garble, but that's okay. It's worse when Baal is in there.
Yeah.
Then we really get some problems. Baal comes to mind.
Yes.
So for me and my household, we will serve the Lord, and that's what Joshua was trying to get. The whole thing about you can serve anybody you want, but
as for me,
right. And the Israelites, when they weren't grumbling, all said, no, we agree with you.
Yeah.
So at least in this passage, they weren't grumbling like they had been previously.
Exactly.
I'll take it. Psalm 34, one more time.
One more time, but let me tell you, they sang it, man.
They did.
The congregation sang that, taste and see.
Because by then they knew it.
Yes.
And I have to say, even at my church,
Yeah.
they were singing it yesterday.
Go, Stephen.
Good. We like that. Ephesians. Now here's where it gets sticky, folks. Okay.
Yeah, well.
Ephesians.
We had a lector yesterday who just insisted on reading the controversial part.
Gee, I wonder who that was.
I wonder who that was, but she's wearing a blue shirt this morning.
Yes,
so
she is.
I heard she's very obstropulous.
Yeah, she's obstropulous, all right.
Oh, there's a $10 word. What do we? Yikes! That's early morning for that type of word.
It is.
Yikes!
Yes, we had the long version. For once by accident, because nobody forgot to tell the lector to read the short version, and because Father was not really preaching on Ephesians. So,
right.
But our 8:30 lector wanted to read the long version.
She did.
And she did. And I agree with the reason she wanted to read it, because of the first line. Not so much about women being subordinate to their husbands.
Thank you.
But that we should all be subordinate to one another, in other words. And it's another way of saying we should all love one another and serve one another.
Right.
And that's the line that makes the most sense. But unfortunately, what everybody hears is, or at least what 21st century women hear is, we're supposed to be doormats for our husbands.
Subordinate and submissive are 2 different words.
Yeah, but not to the 21st century woman.
Well, the 21st century woman, I believe, needs to broaden her.
Well, that may be true, but she's sitting in the pew listening to that reading, and she's going, "What?"
Yeah, but and that's the problem.
Yes.
That's the problem, because you're not sitting and listening to the whole thing.
No, you just hear the buzzwords.
Right, and that's not. And what do? We take the buzzwords away, so the buzzwords get more power.
Yeah.
And I don't think the buzzwords should get more power. And that's.
If you look at the reading as a whole, it's that first sentence, expounded. You have to be subordinate to one another. So, when wives be subordinate to your husbands, husbands love your wives. If
Right.
you love someone, you're going to put their needs above yours. So it's a very balanced reading, but language-wise, it doesn't sound that way.
And it's funny because biblical scholars say that in the first century, the scandal was husbands love your wives.
Yeah. Yes.
Because husbands thought of their wives as property.
As chattel. Yes.
Yes. So that was the scandal in the first century, where husbands love your. What do you mean, love my wife? Well,
Yeah.
but it's the same, ladies. Subordinate does not mean you give up who you are.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And if we continue to use the short reading and take that away from people's understandings, then I really think we're short-sheeting the women. They're not going to understand that this is, that this is very equalizing.
Yeah, but here's the thing, too. If you just throw that reading out there and nobody preaches on it,
True.
That's no good either.
Made the pastor say something, though, didn't
Yes. Yes. And he said it at the 4 also.
he? Yeah.
Because, you can't really just float that out there and leave it.
No,
you have to say something about it. Although there have been many a Holy Family Sunday where nothing was said about it.
That's the other side of it. You need to touch it into, because there's the whole thing about being a household, which goes with the first reading. A household has to be together in making some of these decisions, and then it goes with the gospel, because if you're going to be, because it says right after that, you're subordinate to your husband as you would be to Christ.
Yes.
Okay, and that's important, because I don't think a lot of us, myself included at times, don't know how to be subordinate to Christ. Don't know how to say, yes, Lord, whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
And we gotta get a clue.
Yeah.
We gotta get a clue. So that's why this lector decided she was going to get all icky, and I want to read the whole thing.
Anyway, it worked fine, and it didn't have anything to do with the homily, but there was an aside.
Yeah, and I'll never probably read again. So there's.
And you notice how I'm not really saying anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, husband.
No, why not? Well, Steve, you should be in the middle of this too, because
I can sum this up in a nutshell using my humor.
Okay.
I liken it as this. I heard that. I read the reading, even though they proclaimed the short reading. But I'm kind of a jovial person, so I would say to my wife, Beth, yes, do you love me? Yep. Then go get me a glass of water.
Oh, boo, boo.
I will tell you this, and I'm sure you both will relate. Years ago, when I was dating Beth, my grandmother was still alive, and I grew up. My grandmother lived with us, so I grew up with her. Yeah. And the sun rose and set on her grandkids, And I'll never forget, Beth and I were dating, and it was Sunday dinner, and we were at my mother's house, and my grandmother was there, and I said to Beth, "Oh, can you just go grab me the soda or whatever?" And Beth said to me, "Well, you can get up and do it." And my grandmother looked at her and she said, "Not with all these women around."
Oh. Yes,
and
that's the Italian grandmother.
Yes, exactly.
Portuguese grandmother too.
And as an Italian grandmother, I can attest to that.
Exactly. So Beth just kind of gave me the stink eye.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, I agree with what you're saying. I think, as in the case of my current parish, I wonder if they just omitted it for the sake of making it shorter.
Yeah.
But so I think in most places it's like everyone's scared to proclaim that part.
Right.
So they just conveniently glance over it. However, if you have a missalette and you have two eyes,
right.
I was following along this weekend, and I was chuckling as we were getting up to it, and I thought, oh, yeah, we're gonna go right over that, and they did, But Father Scott did reference that reading in his homily too. So.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and I think it's I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to do it was as a married woman. You know, I wanted to make basically the statement that, yeah, ladies, we really need to, it's not a case of, you know, squelching who we are. It's not a case of being less than who we are, because that isn't how we are in the eyes of the Lord. We are full, you know, human beings in the eyes of the Lord. But when it comes to family things, you have to sometimes put your own stuff aside.
Yeah.
And it goes, and the man who loves his wife will automatically put that stuff aside. It's going to be difficult sometimes, but it ends up being, no, we'll do it your way. Well, no, we'll do it your way.
Yeah.
Which I'd rather see than I want my way.
Yeah.
You know, and this comes out of 33 years of being married.
And it's just the perception, though. I think the point you're making is absolutely right. I think it's just the popular perception of the language of the reading.
That's
it. You know, it needs to be explained. And there was a lot of meat in these readings this weekend. So, it was hard to do it justice.
But I love that you finish a reading like that, and then within the first 3 lines of the gospel, you hear, "This saying is hard."
Hard, yes. It sure is.
I was chuckling in the pew, going, "More than you know." It's not just the bread of life that people are thinking about right now. They're just saying the same thing. Who can accept it? Well, we all can. Yeah. But it's the same thing. You know, when you get to that, Jesus is saying, "I am the bread of life. You must eat my flesh and drink my blood." And people are going, "Say what, Jesus?
What?
Yeah. Are you kidding me?" And you look away. And it happens all the time in our church now. When something gets to be really hard, instead of pushing through it, they walk away.
Well, I had a pastor once whose favorite funeral reading was John 6. "My flesh is true food indeed, and my blood is true drink indeed." And I thought, you know, for people coming to church for a funeral that probably many of them have not been to church in a long time, this is a hard saying to present to them. Why don't you do something that's a little more accessible?
Like the wise and foolish virgins.
No.
I like the wise and foolish virgins. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you know, that is a little more accessible than my flesh is true food indeed. But I often thought, you know, those people sitting out there are like, what? You know, like the people listening to Jesus at the time, you know?
Or the one, you know, "Lord, where are you going? How will we know the way?"
Yes. Hopefully they'll keep going.
Read the whole thing and turn the page.
Find the end of the homily. At the end of the gospel.
That's a story for another day.
Story for another day.
Tell that story. Okay, so both of you have homilies. Thanks be to God.
Yes.
So I will turn the floor over to you two, and who would like to go first this morning?
Stephen.
Okay.
Go, Steve. You're up.
Actually, and you know, Father Scott, he had all the masses, and he does a great job. He touches on everything. God bless him. The first reading, the psalm, the second reading.
Wow,
the gospel, nice. And he kind of dances around, but it works. It does work. You know, he and actually, Joanne, what you just said about these sayings of Jesus are hard, and people, he acknowledged the fact that even just in the parish that we know that people don't practice, they kind of drift off. You know, and so we have to pray for those people and encourage them to come back, you know. So that was one of the things he said. But he talked about how this was the end of the bread talks. And
bread talks. There you go.
He said, you know, he likens it to like when one of our favorite TV shows, like it's done, like this, you know, it's this. I don't know if he said the season finale or I think he said the season finale.
Oh, gee.
And you're like, oh, but you know, we're gonna wait until it's, you know, it starts up again. So he said, and yet, even though today's the last one, he said, you know, through the rest of the church year, the whole point is Jesus he encourages us to be faithful disciples, and he said, many people do find that these teachings are hard, and they opt out, if you will. You know how you can opt out of emails and all kinds of things.
Yes.
And he said, and they just kind of go about their business. And then he honed in on, we have come to believe that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, of course there's many times in our lives that we question that, because life is life, and you just kind of have to go take whatever comes at you. He said, and that's precisely why the Eucharist is so important, because of what we talked about before. It's sustenance. So he said, and then he went into the second reading a little bit, and he said, the husband and wife relationship, think of it as a parallel to Jesus and the church. He said, and it's a mystery. He said, of course it's a mystery. He said, but we have to liken the husband and wife to Jesus and the church.
See?
And that's about what he said about that. He was smart. He didn't go too far into that. And then he said, and then he actually sometimes will start with the gospel and go backwards. And then he said, Joshua reminds us that we have to choose who are we going to serve. And he said, again, as we're mindful of maybe people in our own families that have left, we have to pray for them, and at the same time we have to focus on our own lives and why we are at church. Why do we come to church? And he pointed to the crucifix. St. Augustine has a big crucifix. And he said, and he ended it, and he said, may all these weekly, Bread of Life discourse, may it inspire us to be lifelong learners as we continue on the journey as members of the church. And that was sort of it in a nutshell. So.
The only thing about this 5-week stretch is the fact that I wish it wasn't in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is something I think that needs to be heard. But I think back when the good fathers, council fathers, were putting this together, we didn't have the summer vacay problem.
Right.
So they figured, all right, summer's a good time. People can actually listen.
Yeah.
And they're not busy. But now it becomes people aren't attending, and they're missing it.
Yeah.
And that, I feel, is a big detraction.
Well, I noticed. I mean, I've been at the parish since July 1, and school begins this week.
Oh,
and
you.
Boy, were the masses crowded this weekend.
Here we go.
I turned around and I was like, Saturday night, I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they probably were all sitting down there going, who's that?
Yeah, that's true.
Somebody knew.
Lots of people were kind of like, I could, I have a big mirror, so and I could see people were like, oh, okay, so.
Something changed while we've been gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Well, our pastor always ends the school year. We have an end of school year mass, and a lot of the parents are there. And he always ends the school year's homily by saying, it's summer and enjoy your vacation, but we don't take a vacation from God. And of course, everybody does in the summer.
Of course. So, of course, if there are changes, then you end up with.
And now for something completely different.
Yes.
They come back and they're like, whoa.
Oh. Cool.
Okay, so good. I'm glad that, and I like the fact that he goes backwards.
He does, and it's and then he also sometimes throws the psalm in there. So I have to.
Hey.
Once I try to go over to the seasonal psalms, I gotta kind of give them a clue.
Yes.
So
heads up.
We'll
So
be
it
doing
doesn't
seasonal psalm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that way they can say, if you were reading along and saw that the psalm was different.
Yeah. Or they can just include the psalm that we're singing.
Yes.
Exactly. That would be perfect. But in an imperfect world, they'll probably, if they want to reference the psalm, they still do.
Yeah.
What can I tell you? All right. Well, I'm sorry he had to say all 5 masses, and they were probably looking at him going, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah, yeah, right.
He's newer than the pastor.
Yeah, actually, him and I both started the same weekend.
Well,
so
there you go.
You know what, Joanne? You're right.
Yeah.
Conceivably, if you hadn't been to church since school ended,
Right.
you would have no idea who we were.
Exactly. What has happened?
Am I in the wrong church?
Yeah.
Yeah, yikes. All right, Linda, so let's see what our pastor said.
Okay, our pastor did a very similar thing. He started with the gospel and went backwards.
Another one. That's right, he did.
Yeah. He started with, "To whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life." Way to go, Peter, he says, with a round of applause. He says, "I'm always picking on Peter because he's so much like me."
Yes, he is.
Yes.
I've noticed.
But today he got it right. What profound words of faith, especially considering the context. For the past few weeks, we have been listening to what scholars call the bread of life discourse in St. John's Gospel. Yet we must remember how all this began with the feeding of the 5,000. It's these same 5,000 in St. John's Gospel who are also hearing these powerful but troubling words of Jesus. In the end, Jesus is telling them to make a decision, to follow him or stay where they are. For us, it seems an easy choice, yet we must understand what that choice meant for them. It really was at the core of their beliefs. For the people of Israel, the belief in one God is what separated them from all the others around them. And now the words and symbols Jesus was using was putting that to the test. For he was using words and symbols that were reserved for God alone. This was tough to take, and so in the end, the choice was there. Follow Christ or walk away. And many walked away, and it was too much to take. And actually, at 10:30, I actually made it into the homily because we were discussing before Mass. I said to him, I find this gospel very poignant and points to the humanity of Christ, saying to his closest friends, this is my message. Are you going to leave me too over this? I find it very poignant. And at this point, Father John also pointed that out. He goes, "For isn't that what life is all about? Choices." In our first reading, Joshua tells the elders they have a choice, to serve God or to serve the idols, the gods of the Amorites or the river gods. For him and his household, they will serve the Lord. And he did mention that we were going to sing about that later.
Yes, we did. Thank you, Rory Cooney.
Yes, which is really, we really worked together on this one. For us, our lives are about choices, he said. What school do I send my children to? What college do I attend? Do I change jobs? Do I take the plunge and get married? Do I stay in a horrible relationship? Do we move or stay where we are to take care of our elderly parents? Choices, decisions that we confront. Some are difficult, some are the ordinary choices in life. Yet what Jesus is telling us is to allow the words of Scripture, to allow the power of the Eucharist, to allow the presence of God into these choices, into these decisions. To whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Do we allow these words to affect our choices, our decisions, in our daily lives? One of the challenges of Vatican II was to bring our faith and our beliefs outside of the building of the church and into the building up of the church, the body of Christ, in our homes, schools, and places of work. The choice is ours. Hopefully we will respond in faith. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
There you go. And it was, again, he weaves, he's very, I felt a little bad throwing him a curveball.
Nah, he handled it.
He handled it really well.
He handled it.
And put it all in together. And I know he's very, particularly, he writes out his homily, he goes over it a few times.
And tries to memorize it because he preaches from the center.
Yeah, which I, take my hat off to him for doing that. And he's he's usually spot on, and he's been getting I think,
Yeah.
Every week it gets a little bit. It's almost like he's building up for something. Not quite sure where that eventually is going to be. Whether it's because we're moving into Stewardship Parish. It could be all weaved into that. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the build up.
Yeah.
This way.
I have the sense that he's trying to point up more the connection between the first reading and the gospel, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Oh, sorry, I just
get that Old Testament reading in there.
Yeah, really, get the Old Testament going. Yeah. Well, only because I think a lot of people start to dismiss the Old Testament now.
Well, yeah.
We only want to be concerned with the New Testament because that's what Jesus said.
Right.
But Jesus is always going back and saying, to fulfill the Scripture.
Yes.
Scripture has said, but I say. So if you don't know what the Scripture said in the beginning, how do you know what he's going to say, and how do you know why?
And Jesus was steeped in what we call the Old Testament.
He would be the Jewish male of his time.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, good. Okay, we have about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, let's go with the next topic.
We're going to roll here a little bit. Thank you for homilies. And again, if you want to send us yours so we can talk about it, we'll tell you at the very end again how you can do that. And I'll keep telling you forever and ever how you can do that. But let's move over to Voice of the People this week. And like I said in the beginning, again, we're dealing with a music topic. So don't go away. Trust me. You might find this one a little interesting. We put up this week on our Facebook page something from our friends at Pray Tell. Now, Pray Tell, God love them at Pray Tell. I didn't want to go back and look after I put this up because they get a little too academic for me, and I'm an academic, and I just when you start really throwing it out on matters like this, it's like, wait a minute, this isn't an academic issue. This has more to do with ministerial. So I didn't go back and read anything, but this is one that they put out that begs the question: do all the choir members have to be believers and Catholic? Okay, and I watched as both Stephen and Nancy went in and, gave their opinions. Thanks, guys, because...
Well, the first thing I discovered, Joanne, is because we're admins on Monday Morning Catholic,
right?
If I don't put my name, it comes in as
Monday Morning Catholic. Me too.
Yeah.
Exactly, and you have to put your name.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I put it in parentheses. Yeah.
But the reason why we're all admins, because if one of us sees something that's kind of icky, we have the power to pull it quickly. And I think that's without saying, Joanne, could you go pull that?
Yeah.
Right.
Read it. So that's why we're all admins. And I think anybody who has a group page like this on Facebook or any place else needs to have that power. That's my little technology tip of the day. There you go. You and Nancy got in here, and I was glad you did, because I hate to be the one who always... I wanted to sit back on this one and see where people were going to go with it. But I do like the fact that we have people here who are saying that, especially Nancy said, and I will read Nancy's, I do believe that if necessary, I could argue both sides validly. We all could. Personally, I like to know that a person leading me in song shares this worship, at least as a baptized Christian. It doesn't make sense to me otherwise. Now, those of you who know Nancy's story, Nancy is someone who came to the Catholic faith later on in life. So she's seen both sides now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I don't have that on my cart, and I will.
You want me to sing it?
Yeah, no, that's quite all right.
Quite all right, thank you.
It's early. But she's seen both sides, so I was very interested in hearing. And I know, Steve, that you said, what about choir directors, musicians?
And I do really, Jason commented after that, and it's a... I suppose that as the director, it might be a little different because the pool is thinning.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had experiences in different parishes where I've had choir members who weren't Catholic, but they were believers, Christian.
Right.
But I've had a couple of instances where, like, and I'm not going to say any names or anything.
Oh,
but
don't drop names.
But
good.
one time, one other choir member came to me and said, so and so is doing a crossword puzzle during Mass. And I said, oh, okay. So I had to.
I know Catholics who do that.
Yeah.
Well, I privately messaged her, and I'm like, you really can't do that. And that was years ago, and I think she just sang in the choir because she liked to sing.
Right. And
Which is
there's Catholics who do that.
right. But I also have a priest friend who went to a parish that had a paid choir, if you will.
Mm.
Okay.
And the music was set up behind the altar.
Ooh.
And there's a screen that blocks the music ministry. It's kind of odd, to be honest with you. But he said he discovered that they'd be on their iPads and iPods and reading because they were just there for a gig.
Right.
So I believe he dismissed all of them. Good for him, I guess.
Yeah.
But so that's where I'm coming from. I know the issue is a lot bigger than just those specific things, but
Well, theoretically, if you read the document, choir members are supposed to be members of the assembly with a special ministry to perform.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, they should be practicing Catholics.
Right.
That's theoretically. All right. Like Nancy, I can argue on both sides, and that's why I didn't get into it on Facebook. I can argue on both sides, and I don't mean people who just approach it as a gig, but I mean people who are not Catholic but come to church week after week. There's something there, and you've got to let grace work sometimes.
Right.
And so if singing in the choir is a source of grace for them, all the more power to them, But on the other hand, I do see this whole thing of being members of the worshiping assembly with a special ministry to do. And I try to impress that onto my crew every year. As a matter of fact, some of my 20-year veterans just roll their eyes when I start my my spiel at the beginning of the year. It's like, we could give it. I said, well, okay, give it.
Then give it.
Give it to the new ones, But it's, you can't hear it too much, particularly in a performance-based ministry.
Mm-hmm.
We rehearse and we rehearse and we rehearse so that it's perfect, but it's not the performance that's the be-all and end-all. It's the praise.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see both sides of the story.
And as I can as well, which is why I said nothing to see what was going to come out. My experience has been that I've had folks who were married to Catholics.
Yes.
Who joined the choir, and some of them actually did become Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say that the stint in the choir wasn't something that was, again, great, like you said, grace-filled for them. But you're right, our documents state that it really needs to be people who are in the assembly. So you can make the case for the husband or wife or child, in respect, of family who are still searching. One is Catholic, the rest are not.
Right.
And they're coming every week, and they're still part of the assembly.
Yeah.
But the gig thing drives me nuts.
That drives me nuts, yeah.
It drives me nuts because as a musician who was trained in college to understand what it is to perform.
Yeah.
You know, and when I talk about my training, I don't necessarily talk about the degree. I talk about the mindset
Yeah.
of how it was when you would be practicing and what they would be teaching you. That when I got to church as a cantor for the first time at the age of 21, I looked at it in the beginning as a gig.
Yeah.
Because I was taught, this is what you do. And if it wasn't for the man I was working for at the time, Glenn Gittari, he's the one who showed me the ministry part of it. Like to be a minister with this gift. So that was something I took with me and then imparted upon my choir. So I'm sure my choirs were like your choir, sick of me here saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And especially sick of me if something wasn't exactly correct. And see, they always thought it was the musician in me that was pulling the plug on them 5 minutes before Mass. It was the minister in me.
Yeah.
Because the minister knew that if they couldn't perform this correctly, they would not be praying.
It would be a barrier to prayer rather than a help.
Right, and it's a barrier not only to them, but to others who are now listening to it going, crap, what
the hell happened there?
What are you doing there? So I would pull people. Even my own husband would be like looking at me going, you're just too much of a perfectionist. I'm like, no, it's not perfect. No. It's, does this work right now? No. Will it work the next time they do it? Maybe. I mean, I kept, the one song in one church was, the one we do, Mike Jonkis's Voice Cries Out.
Oh, yeah.
When I was in one particular parish, it took 3 years.
Yeah.
Before they could actually perform it.
Well, we've been doing that for like 20-some years.
Right.
So.
But they would get caught up in some of the harmonies, and we try to do it, and I'd say, no, forget it. Let's
not do that this year. Yes.
Actually, no. Yeah. They got mad at me by like the third. Like I said, yeah, this year I think we're ready. And when they did it, they felt that they had worked towards something.
Yeah.
And they also felt that it wasn't. They didn't have to worry about it so much.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get at. Again,
pray it
for everybody, but that's
that's true, Joanne, because that we practice sometimes things ad nauseum.
Yeah.
But a comment was made to me, and I never thought of it this way, but after I left one parish, a comment was made to me when they got the new director. This woman said to me, "Remember how I used to bust your chops all the time because we would sing songs at rehearsal for weeks on end?" And I say yes. And she said, but then we'd sing it at Mass, and it would go off beautifully, and there would be no problems. She said, well, now we're going week to week, and she said we panic sometimes because we're not sure of the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so therefore there's panic instead of prayer.
Right.
Exactly. Right. And that's something we need to be avoiding in our situations. That's why rehearsals, that's why cantor, getting together to go over things, that's why all those things are so important. Because if you're not steady when you get up there, it's not the performance, it's the prayer that gets waylaid. And I don't want to, and it's not just your prayer.
No.
Other people's prayer.
It's other people's prayer, yes.
They're worried for you, about you.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a whole. I should have written the book on psychology of choirs.
Oh dear.
Done that, but there is a psychology to doing this.
Sure, there is.
But from a church standpoint, it has to be about prayer. It has to be about ministry, and I think that's why they came up with this question, because if you are not Catholic or not even a believer, how can you do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
What it does is it helps people make decisions, but are we there to help them do that? In some cases, maybe.
And actually, this discussion is timely for me, as in a few weeks will begin up with a new group.
Mm-hmm.
And so this as we're sitting here, I'm thinking, oh yes, I have to say that. Well, that's a good point. Because it's new for all of us, and everyone's very apprehensive. So
sure,
it's a timely topic.
You got to let the air out of the fear balloon right away.
Yes. Yeah.
You got to deflate that fear balloon, because they're all going to be coming in with now what?
Yeah.
Put somebody, and I know you can. That's not but it's hard for you because you've got to let the air out of your own fear balloon.
Yeah.
I say
Yeah.
bring muffins.
Muffins, there you go. She usually brings cookies.
Yes,
Cookie
I
thing.
bring cookies.
Well, you know what, Linda? Since we're both going to rehearse on the same night, if you make a double batch, I'll pick them up on my way.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Why not?
Because we're
Why
really, literally right down the road from each other. So,
One thing I did want to say, though, on this is that now people shouldn't be worried about their hired musicians because there are times during the year where you have to hire musicians.
Right.
So at that point, you want to get, yes, you always want to get a Catholic musician, but again, some of them don't know
can't
that
always.
either. Some of them don't. What any musician that comes into our type of situation should know is the order of Mass.
Yes.
Somewhat familiar, and they should also be professional enough that if they're in front, know they're not playing on their iPad during the homily.
And
Do
the
you
other
wanna
issue,
hear-
Joanne, like we had at Bristol, was most of them wanted to receive communion.
Oh,
What?
jeez.
Well, because they're
Right.
church people.
Right.
You know, I mean, I would bring them in from different places, but they were all mostly all Catholic. And so I remember one time we had communion brought up to us in the loft, and they bypassed the musicians.
Ooh.
They just you know, it was just an oversight. So then I had to always explicitly say, start with the musicians first,
Right.
and then and then make your way through the choir.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
But I think the question on Facebook was aimed at the week in, week out choir members. I
Right.
don't think it was aimed at, the trumpeter you hire for Easter.
Right.
True. But so again, it's one that leaves the ministers open to almost to interpretation, but understanding that these folks are a body of prayer. So
Yes.
unless you don't see your group as a body of prayer leaders, then you need to get that first before you can answer that question. Am I correct in assuming that line of
Yes.
thinking?
Yes.
All
Yes,
right.
you are.
Then we've done our job. We've done our job by saying this is a group of people who are ministers who lead worship,
Who lead worship.
whether they're in the back or in the front. So that you take it from there. And I have one quickie that's going on Facebook also, and I feel we need to at least bring this to the forefront. Facebook, this is part of our, we'll do a quick what's the buzz, and this has been buzzing all over Facebook in the past couple of weeks, even a petition going on, that Facebook is having an issue with the titles of Father, Monsignor, whatever, when our priests are on Facebook. Now, our priests are being encouraged to be on social media, to be encouraged to be who they are. Yet Facebook is saying if that is not your name, if FR or Monsignor is not your name, then it should not be in your name on Facebook. Agree, disagree? Facebook.
Well, I disagree vehemently because it is in their name.
It is.
That's how they are addressed. Because of the sacrament of ordination, that is who they are.
It is
their being. And I mean, it's just like saying you can't put Mr. or Miss or Mrs. in front of your name. Although I don't know too many people that do put that in front of their name.
I actually didn't even realize this was an issue until we just talked about it.
Yeah.
I guess I live under a rock. I don't know.
You do too many funerals, Steve.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
No, it is. It has been a big issue, but I think what's happening is that Facebook has been doing it quietly, but now the priests are starting to say it openly, that this is happening. So I'm wondering, I wondered out loud, quietly to us, but I'm going to say it now. What do you do when you have a bishop, such as Bishop Coyne, for example? Bishop Coyne has his own Facebook page where he is just Christopher Coyne, but he also has a page, I believe, that is, it has to be, verified, that he is Bishop Christopher Coyne. So what are they going to do? Take away the bishop after they verified him? Because
he is a bishop.
not the only bishop on Facebook. Rosansky in Springfield is there. I believe our Bishop Tobin is there.
He is, yeah.
Bishop Tobin. So what are they going to do? Make them verify it? I mean, the whole issue is this isn't what's on. You have to give us proof on paper. And you know most of them don't have Father or Monsignor on their driver's license. So that's mostly what the official paper is.
Well, and the
I
thing
think
is,
it's splitting hairs. If you want my honest opinion, it's splitting hairs.
I do, because how many people, like, I have Linda Delomo Reed on my Facebook.
Right.
I don't have Mrs. Linda Delomo Reed.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have Joanne Gordon Mercier.
You know, even though Mrs. is a huge part of who I am.
Right.
I just put my baptismal name up there.
Right. Exactly.
So I don't know. When you think about it, I don't know either. I
just think if they're being encouraged to be out there as who they are, and they are priests, and they are bishops, then they need to have that identification so that the people know who they are. You're not going to just guess by their name.
Well, I kind of like the idea of putting it somewhere in parentheses or putting it in their picture, you know, where you have a little picture on Facebook. Just putting it somewhere that's not in the actual name.
Right.
You
But
know?
I've heard that rabbis are allowed to put rabbi.
Oh, well. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. So I waited and held that little one out till the end.
That doesn't make any sense then. If rabbis are, because you don't.
But who's the founder of Facebook?
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
Berg.
Yeah, but he's got to remember that there's other faiths that use Facebook.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. If they can do that, then what is wrong with and of course then you start hearing it's anti-Catholic and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to go down that road and I don't want to think that. But at this point, if Facebook continue, I'm always 2 seconds away from jettisoning Facebook.
Nah.
Because I don't particularly care for it.
Oh,
you know what's funny, Joanne? I had that book the other day. I was scrolling through and I go, why do I really care?
Yeah.
Like what? It was funny because Beth was on one end of the couch and I was on the other. And
Right.
I can see her finger going like this, and this my finger going, and I'm thinking to myself, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, isn't it? But the thing is that there are two reasons. One, I keep up. One is the fact that we have a Facebook page.
No,
Yeah.
right.
Okay? And in order for me to have a Facebook page, I have to have a personal page. That's just the way it works. And two, yes, I have relatives and friends who haven't seen me in years. This is the only way I keep up with them.
Yep.
And know what's going on.
But sadly, I think we have a generation of people that all they do, and in their minds, they associate with people just on Facebook.
Yeah.
I think you're correct.
And how sad is that?
I know.
So
I know.
I understand because I have family all over the place that you send a message or whatever. But the thought just as I'm scrolling through, I'm going, why do I really care what these people are posting? And I post some ridiculous stuff too, but I do it just to bust chops. So,
Yeah, well.
Well, I find it interesting because there are a lot of tech people who also have gotten off of Facebook. Because they just feel there are many other things. My biggest issue with them is they keep changing the format. So even if I like a particular format, in 3 months or 2 weeks it gets changed.
Yeah.
Correct.
So here I am again saying, where is my most recent? I don't want to read top stories. I want to read most recent.
Yes.
So,
I would like to read most recent. Yes.
yeah, well, that keeps getting moved around and changed, and they don't want you to, and it's becoming more and more monetized. They want you to, like for our page, they want us to boost our
Sure.
They want us to pay for it. And
Sure.
Hey, look, I don't get paid for this. You don't get paid for this. I'm
That's it.
paying Facebook for this.
Right.
So, the privilege of being on there. So, but there is a petition for those of you who feel strongly about it. There is a petition out there. I can't remember where it is. I'll try to find it for the honorable mention. But there is, if you you think it'll do any good, which I don't think it will, but maybe the unjust judge has to hear from the squeaky widow.
Yeah, right.
So so that things can get changed. I don't know, but just know that and support your priests
Yeah.
because they want to be out there for you.
Right.
And what they're
Right.
with. So, all right. Well, the clock on the wall tells me it's time to go because Stephen has to go to a funeral.
Yeah,
Funeral, yeah.
I have to meet a guest singer coming in, so I go to school.
Yeah,
So,
Okay.
we're all scooting. So,
all right.
so again, if you need to go right now, Stephen, thank you so much.
Yes, I gotta go, but I'll take care, ladies.
Bye.
Have a good funeral.
Thanks. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Yes, which next time, while he leaves, I get to say that next time is not next week. We are taking a break next week because, unfortunately, the one who produces the program is taking a few days off.
And you should.
Yes, but you need to learn how to do this.
Yeah,
And every time I say that, all three of you do the same thing.
No.
I know.
We like to leave the tech work to the expert.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you, Google Hangout can do the work for you. It does most of the work. Yeah, I pad things sometimes, but
I can open a Google Hangout and talk,
well,
but I don't know how to publicize it or get it on, I don't know how to do any of that stuff.
well, I could teach you in 5 minutes.
Yeah, right, okay.
You would learn it and you would be happy.
I would have to come over to your house, though, and sit and...
You wouldn't. But anyway, we're not here next week, gang.
We're not here next week.
So we will be here, however, for Labor Day weekend. Figure that out. Where I think most people wouldn't be around Labor Day weekend, they are.
Yeah, well, we are, because we're around every weekend.
So we will be back Labor Day weekend with stories to share.
Okay.
But we will still put out, something for this week and for the fall. So you'll have 2 weeks to throw something up there for Voice of the People. And if you want to send us some feedback, please do. MondayMorningCatholic@gmail.com, in the comment box at MondayMorningCatholic.net. You can put up your comments, and thanks to those who do, on Facebook.com/Monday Morning Catholic, or you can call the Voice feedback line 774-955-0659. I know Stephen had to go. Linda, I thank you so much for, being back with us again.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll get Nancy back next week, which I think is the one person who has been consistently watching the show this morning. And if she hasn't, I will slap her.
Not next week. 2 weeks.
Right, 2 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks. But we have had up to at least 6 or 7 people.
Whoa.
So not bad. They came in and out. And
All right.
if you like this, let us know, and we'll keep doing it this way. But it will be on Sundays, not on Monday mornings.
Yeah.
We just can't. Yeah. So thank you. Please pray for just about everything that's going on in this world, because yikes. And for Linda Reed, Steve Romano, myself, Joanne Mercier, thank you so much for being here with us. And until next time in 2 weeks, ciao for now. See you later.